Hey babes, welcome to the very first episode of Designers You Should Know About. Now before we get started, let the record show I'm not an interior designer. I technically have got nothing to do with interior design, but I'm an enthusiast. And being an enthusiast is just a nicer way of saying you're a bit of a nerd. So if you've got any additional knowledge, feel free to continue the conversation in the comments. And let's teach each other. Personally, my favorite era for interior design is the mid-century era, which was highly influenced by a post-war optimism. It was a time of dreams. And as the world began to rebuild itself, rethink itself, designers and architects experienced new opportunities to be creative and original in their designs. In Norway, they organized a housing survey, which turned out to show that most people's living conditions were really bad. And so architects and designers who participated in this survey were strongly involved in the work that followed to improve the housing conditions of most people. More globally, the American economy did really well. Business was booming and monies were being spent. People had big pockets and the demand for items were high, and designers and architects, they were happy to provide, So the American consumer actually became the catalyst for a massive expansion within the world of design. So new fast developing technologies and methods of production allowed designers opportunities to create a whole new range of products, or a whole new generation of products. And in addition, the global spread of information technology such as film and TV helped bring all of this content into the homes of people. And this move towards internationalism is another strong characteristic of the mid-century era. In general, we can describe the world of mid-century design as pioneering. The designs mirrored the rapid changes in society during the 50s and 60s and actually provided shape and identity to this new way of living and a new wave of consumer products. But not only that, many of the products and homes designed during this era actually laid the foundation of the way that we live our lives today. And many of the furniture created during this time still feel quite contemporary and fresh. And one of the key characteristics of mid-century furniture is their close relationship to the art world. So during the post-war years, the furniture were quite they became increasingly sculptural, and then during the 60s a lot of the furniture designs became a little bit more abstract, and the color palette was very much in tune with the pop art movement, so bold colors and abstract shapes. Architecture was also a very important influence on the mid-century furniture design, and architects were particularly interested in the different new materials and the possibilities that the development of these technologies offered. So for instance, fiberglass is one of these new materials that came about during this time, and you can see a lot of the furniture that was created during the mid-century era has been made with fiberglass, or plastics is another one that interested a lot of designers. Today though, I do want to kind of focus on Scandinavian interior design from the mid-century era, because if you've been around the internet, you might have seen Scandi style, Scandinavian interiors, and it makes it sound like Scandinavia is one thing, whereas in fact, Scandinavia consists of 5 countries. And although we share history and we have a lot of things in common, many people think we look alike, it would be wrong to perceive Scandinavia as one, just because we all have, for instance, our own languages, cultural etiquettes, and country-specific norms and traditions, which is obviously also then the design coming out of these countries would be different. Now, the reason that people abroad, outside the borders of Scandinavia, might perceive Scandinavia as one is partly our own fault. During the mid-century era, as Swedish and Danish modern interior design and furniture became in fashion, they received a little bit of international recognition. Norway and Finland, we were a little bit like, okay, let's ride that wave. How can we collaborate? Iceland were doing their own thing. We decided to collaborate on an international exhibition and government-funded promotional activities using the word Scandinavia, which then meant that everyone would benefit as consumers kind of adopted the Scandi term and the products that came from the Scandinavian countries. There are, of course, drawbacks to this because everyone using the same term, it blurs the lines between the differences in the designs coming out of each country. I won't go in depth on that at the moment, but Scandinavian modern furniture design is to most of the world actually Danish modern. Denmark has the longest heritage of furniture making dating back to the 1700s with an established tradition of quality and fine craftsmanship. When Danish design moved towards modernism, Kåre Klint, which was the appointed director of the Department of Furniture and Interior Decoration at the Copenhagen Academy of Fine Arts, he initiated and taught an approach to furniture making that combined functionalism with an appealing humanism, which meant that the furniture had to be both well designed and comfortable. And this approach was adopted by designers across Scandinavia, and as a result, there's a lot of great designs that came out of 2 decades, more or less, when this Scandi style was popping. Generally, Scandinavian design of this era combines comfort and visual appeal through an emphasis on natural materials and quality construction, which has allowed them to stand the test of time and become timeless in the eyes of today. Now, although Danish factories were small, they produced versions of the furniture showcased at the cabinet makers exhibitions, but at a much more reasonable and affordable price. This is partly why Danish furniture were exported internationally, thus kind of marketing Denmark and Scandinavia with it. In comparison to Denmark, Norway's main design traditions lie within silver, but in terms of furniture production, we had a very, very, very small production. Not much attention was paid to design at all. In Norway, most attention was put towards the fishing industry and later the oil industry when that was discovered. This being said, it doesn't mean that Norway doesn't have great interior designers from the mid-century era. So today I want to be slightly patriotic and introduce you to one of my all-time favorite designers. His name is Torbjørn Afdal and was born October 25th, 1917, and he graduated from Statens Håndverks- og Kunstindustriskole in 1946. Something weird goes in my brain between switching between languages. It's kind of like it doesn't want to. Anyway, immediately after he graduated, he got a job at the Norwegian design office Tegnekontoret Bruksbo AS. Bruksbo is quite well known in Norway, at least amongst those who enjoy vintage furniture. They always worked towards raising the standard within Norway's furniture production. Now, he became one of their most important designers, and in Norway, he's considered one of the post-war period's most prolific furniture designers. Afdal cultivated a restrained, cultured, and somewhat traditional design language with a logical sense of constructions and the wood's natural possibilities. He preferred exclusive materials such as teak, rosewood, and leather, and him, like many of his peers at the time, was very much influenced by Danish furniture designs, but he processed and developed that inspiration with independence and imagination. He was represented at Norwegian and Scandinavian furniture exhibitions and at the Milan Triennale in 1930. Now, the Milan Triennale is an international exhibition for arts and crafts and architecture, and has been held every 3rd year in Milan since 1933. In regards to international recognition, Norway has never been particularly good at promoting themselves, but his furniture was purchased by Jacqueline Kennedy when she was the First Lady in the White House, and by the Japanese emperor. So I mean, his furniture did dabble across the borders just a little bit. I do want to show you 3 designs, 2 of which are my favorites, and 1 which is kind of just like a fun example. Because during the 50s and 60s, a particular type of chair entered the market, which was a so-called hunting chair. The most famous hunting chair is possibly Danish designer Børge Mogensen's hunting chair, but all the chairs within this category, like the hunting chair category, they have the same starting point, which is a wooden frame and stretched leather at the seat. So this was a very popular chair design during the 60s, 50s and 60s, and designers from Italy, Germany, Brazil, Scandinavia in general all adopted this and had their own versions. And Afdal too had a chair within this category, which was called Hunter. Okay, a little fun fact for you. The American auction house Wright listed and sold an unknown Danish chair for the whipping price of 75,000 Norwegian kroner. Little did they know that that chair was Hunter, designed by Torbjørn Afdal. That same chair was sold by a Norwegian auction house, Blomquist, for only 13,000 Norwegian kroner, which is like quite a big difference, 75 versus 13. This proves 2 things. Number 1, there's not a lot of knowledge or even interest for Norwegian mid-century design, even in Norway. And 2, as soon as you mention a well-known Danish interior designer or Denmark in connection with furniture design, people automatically think that it's high-end, which just kind of proves this made in Denmark stamp that I've slightly touched upon earlier. You know, people, companies, countries can be branded over time, and the fact that the hype is persistent means that they appear to be the safest card in terms of investments. So buying this chair from a Danish mid-century designer to the buyer probably felt like a great investment despite not knowing who it was. I personally think that Norwegian mid-century interior design definitely deserves some attention. So here we are. Secondly, I want to show you some of his bar cabinets. One that was called the Times bar cabinet. The Times cabinet was simply constructed and adapted to rational production compared to the more lavish bar cabinet that was called Focus. And you know, one time in the future when I have space and the dollars, I would love to own one of these. And then the final design that I want to share with you from his repertoire is the Krobo bench, which is a multi-purpose bench. It was available in several different lengths, wood materials, and it could be supplemented with various modules adapted for LPs and hi-fi systems. The bench is still in production today by Fjord Fiesta, which is a different company, but I am personally very stoked to own my very own Krobo bench.